looking at a woman in Bengaluru, Charmika Nagalla, recently shared a striking commute story on LinkedIn. She booked a bike taxi, and to her surprise, the rider turned out to be a full-time Infosys employee. He worked in the contract management team by the day and moonlighted as a rider in the mornings and weekends. Not out of financial need, but to stay active and productive rather than scrolling aimlessly through his phone. In another instance, Nagalla hopped onto a premium bike with a rider clad in top-tier biking gear. He too turned out to be a full-time professional, this time from a B2B event management firm. His reason? After long hours at work, he didn't want to ride home in silence, so therefore, he took this route. He wanted a bit of conversation, a slice of real-world connection. It says something about the emotional state of young professionals today in India's tech capital. The Bengaluru work culture is intense, fast-paced, high pressure, and often isolating. Deadlines dominate, screens become the only constant and maybe the only friend. But beneath that gloss of opportunity lies the silent epidemic of urban loneliness. It's not just a tech industry problem, it's a reality of modern city life, especially for those who've migrated far from their homes. They seem to be rather lonely, not wanting to speak about it, but finding ways to adapt to it. So how do young professionals navigate this inevitable pressure? How do they cope with the emotional toll of urban anonymity? Joining me is Dr. Rachna Khanna, who's a psychologist, founder, director, the Mind and Wellness Studio. Thanks very much, Rachna. What does it really say about our social fabric here when professionals choosing gig work in just to interact with people, so that they're not going home alone? That just certainly strikes of loneliness, but there are methods to adapt. Tell us more.
So Nabila, it's not just professionals. If we see the urban population, if you see the stats, 45% of urban population at some point of time or the other has suffered or does suffer from loneliness. Yeah. And, if you're seeing it's literally 1 in 3 people, and that's really huge. And it's, of course, post-COVID, it has become exponentially high. That's a lot of overload on the social fabric. And, loneliness is something which is basically an emotional disconnect, right? It is a feeling of being unheard, unseen. It's not just about being alone, it's about feeling alone. And that is something, it is a subjective feeling. That is something you can even feel in a crowd, right? So having said that, like we know, COVID worsened the situation. And today at hand, we have literally, we're saying it's going to be an epidemic because I mean, being lonely, as you know, the stats and the research shows that it's as bad as having 15 cigarettes a day. That is how bad it is for your mental health. And yes, of course, people are using very different methods, different techniques, and this is a very innovative way where some of the tech people wanted to connect. So what does a person want to do when they're lonely, right? They want to connect back with the social world. They want to connect back with the social fabric. What we've been seeing in the last few years is negative coping mechanisms. That means either people will go to a pub, a club, or drown themselves in alcohol, substances, or cigarettes, because that is a negative coping mechanism. Another negative coping mechanism has been fleeting relationships, one after the other. As we're seeing, there's a tremendous amount of dating going on, but not deep, meaningful relationships. And another third thing which you see a negative coping mechanism is the screen, where people are drowning themselves in the screen, whether it's their laptop screens or their phone screens, and that is what is happening. So these are all negative patterns which when you ask about the society fabric, this is what we've been adopting for the
And
last few
isolates
years.
you.
And
Yeah.
how are we going to convert it? Absolutely. So how are we going to convert it into positive coping mechanisms? If we are only going to be well in ourselves, if we look at the wellness wheel today, it's not just mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul. We go a little beyond that. We're looking at the social, compartment. We are also looking at the occupational health. We are looking at the intellectual health. We're looking at the emotional health. So if we are good in most of these, the physical health, of course, then we are going to be feeling a lot more wholesome. So,
Right.
if we see this and we start to create activities in each of this sector for ourselves, people who feel lonely or who are going towards loneliness, because we also know that there is a new study which we were speaking about the other day, is that 45% of Indian women by 2030 are going to be single. So that shows that a lot of single population is going to come up, and that also shows that a lot of geriatric population after a point of time is going to be there, and that shows there's going to be a lot lesser, lesser fertility rate, lesser children if people are not going to
So
get married. So that
we
shows,
buckle
yeah, that
up
shows a lot.
right now, get into healthy practices to lead our lives for a more
Absolutely.
wholesome one. We've heard your points loud and clear, Rachna. I really appreciate your joining us. Thank you very much for this time.